Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 428, Convergence Issue 2. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I'm not sure if this is real or imaginary, so says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we are going to be talking Convergence Issue 2. We're also going to start talking about the Week 1 Convergence tie-in issues. We're going to talk about Convergence Superman number 1 and Convergence Batgirl number 1. We're going to do part 2 of this episode. Actually, Jim, you're going on vacation, and we're going to be talking about the rest of the Week 1 books kind of casually on our next episode. So we decided to do this as kind of a two-parter, so that way there would be no interruption in podcasts for you guys. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Jim, sponsoring us this episode is, of course, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. What's going on over at DCBService.com?
Oh my God. Absolute Batman, the Court of Owls. 50% off. Regular price, $99.99, but yours for just $49.99. I saw this. I cheered. Guy was clicking on it, and it's funny because they say limit of 5 at 50% off. I was actually thinking about getting a second one as a present for somebody. It's that awesome of a story, and I was like, yes, 50% off. I'm jumping on this one.
That makes a nice gift, too. You're absolutely correct on that one. I don't do that with the Absolutes. You know, I've gotten you a couple of Absolutes over the years, but I mean, I don't do that. Like, I've got friends who are Batman fans that would not buy something like that for themselves, and I know that they haven't read The Court of Owls. That makes a nice holiday present, like to get it now and kind of do some. Like, I need to do that more when these deals come up, because it's the nice part about those Absolutes are, for a person who's like a casual comic fan, that becomes a really nice conversation piece gift, where they can put it on a coffee table and read it and page through it and enjoy it. But not only is it cool for them, it becomes cool for guests that come over for them, because those are beautiful volumes. So it really works for the diehard comic fans and also for, you know, a casual fan. At $99, it's a really hard gift. It's expensive. When you do it at 50% off, though, you become a hero for giving like that really cool gift. And that really is, for a lot of my friends, that's a price point that I do. You know, I try to go around that, you know, price range. So I'm glad you said that. I've never considered doing that with the Absolutes, pre-purchasing like that, but that's a real good deal. I want to remind everyone, too, that they are a Comixology and My Digital Comics partner. If you link those accounts to your DCB service account, you earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. Remember, after you link them, do your purchases from DCB Services portal. You want to go to their website and do it. You can click on our website, link to them, and do it that way, or go right to DCBService.com and get it from there. But make sure to do it that way so you get that credit on your account. Over at InStockTrades.com, I have mentioned on the show many times, and we had the opportunity to talk to Bill Willingham, Fables is coming to an end, and they're doing a massive sale on volumes 1 through 20, the trade paperbacks, at 45% off. It's all of volumes 1 through 20, all of them at 45% off. That's a huge savings. So like volume 1, if you've never read Fables before, that's a $12.99 trade paperback that you can get for $7.49. So like if you're one of those people that are like, you know, I'd like to grab like maybe the first 5 volumes, you can do that at an amazing discount. But these volumes are all like, you know, everything I'm seeing is below $10 as I'm like skirting through here. You know, some of them are like volume 20 Camelot, which is a larger trade paperback volume. That's $10.99 because of that 45% off. I mean, what a great deal for that. If you are somebody who's been like, you know what, I really love the concept of Fables. I've never had a chance to really sit down and read a lot of it, but you prefer to grab things in like, you know, 5 or 6 trade segments and just kind of sit down and really enjoy it. This is a series that reads real well as novels. And Vertigo in general tends to read real well this way. I cannot recommend Fables highly enough. And that 45% off deal is currently running right now at InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Yeah, this is Sensei from over at Earth number 27. And Yeah, I'm not as excitable as your regular sensei. I guess he's off fighting somebody, so I'm filling in for him while he's out on battle. So, Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth into the plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read them, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
One of the things I like about the Convergence event is the moral dilemma, in the sense that what would you do to protect your city? I can honestly say I would have no problem protecting my city from you. Like, dude, I'm hitting you with a Buick. Because I just don't ever want to hear that again. Let's talk some comics.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
I wanted to quickly shout out the Kickstarter Molly Danger Book 2. If you're a longtime listener of the show, we've had artist and friend of the show, Jamal Igal, on a number of times to talk about his work. And one of the things that we were able to promote was the first volume of Molly Danger. And we're big fans of Jamal's artwork, his storytelling, his style. This is a project that's near and dear to him. And it brings back adventure and fun and excitement to comics. Molly's a young heroine who, she's like eternally childlike, but inhumanly strong. It's like, what if a kid got these superpowers, and you get that sense of wonder from the story, while at the same time there's real sense of danger. There's a sense of family. There's a sense of friendship. It's all of those elements that you like as you get to know characters, where you start to feel like you're a part of their world. Jamal's artwork is incredibly detailed, and the whole creative team does a great job with this. This second volume takes place 9 months after the first volume. And there are ways in the Kickstarter to get the first volume if you haven't gotten it before. There's also ways to get the audiobook version. There's an audio CD version that's coming out. So there's cool different options on there depending on where you're at and what your history is with Molly Danger. I just wanted to shout this out because it's the volume 1 I loved so much that I really feel like this is a project that I want to encourage people to support. It's an all ages material, but I always caution people, all ages doesn't mean that you sacrifice any of the depth. It's just something that's accessible to children and adults alike, and you get this really amazing story. I kind of hearkened it to the Pixar philosophy. I'm a big fan of Pixar movies, and Molly's in that category where there's certain things that are in there that are clearly for adults. There's certain things in there that are clearly meant for younger crowd. It's a really cool book, and it's staggeringly beautiful, and it's one of those oversized hardcover volumes as well. I should note that, because that's one of the things I love with artwork, the fact that if you can get a series that's an oversized hardcover, a little bit larger format, you get to really see the depth and beauty in this artwork. So just want to shout it out and recommend it to anybody listening on the show. And there's a link in the show notes straight to the Kickstarter, so you can just click on it and go ahead and try to support Molly Danger for yourself. I want this project to go through because I just think it's really awesome. Jim, I want to shout out real quick at the start of the show just the Batman vs. Robin, that new original DVD, Blu-ray, digital release that came out from DC. I'm loving these, and they've got the two lines going. They got the Batman line going and the Justice League line going. The Batman vs. Robin was great because it's that whole Court of Owls storyline, but also further continues to develop the relationship between Bruce and Damian that was so cool that we know and love. What I really loved about that, besides the movie itself, in the extras, it has the preview for Justice League Gods and Monsters. This is one of the first times I've seen them do this in the animated features, where we're used to Elseworlds and the idea of, dream sequences and the multiverse and that kind of thing from DC. But what they've done with Justice League Gods and Monsters, the new one that's going to be coming up, Bruce Timm and company have created their own Justice League world, their own planet, their own Superman. It's their stamp on, if they were to create Superman as a concept, what would it be like? Wonder Woman as a concept, Batman as a concept. So it's a twist on them. The alter egos are not necessarily the people that we usually expect, or their backgrounds are not what we usually expect. The costumes obviously are very different. Heroes and villains and everybody in quote-unquote the traditional sense are going to be very different. So it really is a full-blown Elseworld story, completely original, not off of comic material, other than the fact that if you are a DC fan, it's supposed to be Easter egg filled with, all the DC lore in a new twisted version. Looks really, really cool. I highly recommend for people, if you get this DVD or Blu-ray, first of all, the Batman vs. Robin's worth the price of admission. But if you skip the extras, which I know some people do, there's some really cool Court of Owls documentaries that are on there. But do check out this preview for this, because it's one of those like documentary previews where they tell you a little bit behind the scenes. They tell you about the voice acting, just the genesis of this whole thing. It's just a really cool concept, and it's cool to see Bruce Timm back involved in these with this particular one. It's a chance for him to kind of go wild with the Justice League and the DC Universe in general. So I'm excited for that one. It's just these animated features have just been stellar. Each one, I watch it and go, oh, that was better than the last one. I don't think it really is. I think what it is just the quality of them has been so good all along that I get excited for each new one. And this was one that just stood out for me in general because of the original nature of it.
Well, that's cool. I get mine like a little bit later than you get yours, because I'm doing, instead of the digital downloads, I'm usually getting the physical, DVDs. But I definitely have the Court of Owls one pre-ordered, and then when that one comes out, I'll have that thing set up to get it as well.
Let me get a chance to watch it, because it'd be fun to maybe chat about some of these on the show, just to kind of do an episode maybe where we talk about the animated feature itself. This one was really good. I think you'd like it. I think it'd be a chance to kind of talk about this kind of fun stuff again. I just wanted to shout it out. I also got, speaking of things that I got from my DCB service, I got that Arrow statue. It was the one, I forget what the original price was, but, with the discount, it came to like 80 something. But it's larger than, we've been doing those, I've been doing the Batman black and whites, I've been doing the Superman statues. This is like double the size of those. This was a reissue. I missed it the first time around where his cowl was pulled up over his head. This is one with the cowl down, but it's Ollie from the TV show. It is like incredibly detailed. Like, I'm thrilled with it because I ordered the Flash one last month and I hadn't gotten this one yet, so I had no idea what this was going to be like. This is really cool. The amount of details, the costume from the show, the bow on him and the arrow. There's like a cloth arrow string, and the arrow itself is sort of loose. When I say sort of loose, it's not like falling off it or anything like that, but it looks like and feels like it's sitting on the bow, ready to go flying. It's just an impeccable statue. So I'm really excited for the Flash one, and I hope they do one like for the Atom and some of the other characters relating to it, because it's a really cool looking statue. And I'm just a fan of the shows, so I'd like to see more of them from this line, because I think it's a well put together statue. So I want to shout it out.
You're gonna make me get those, aren't you?
Oh,
You're going to keep talking about these things, and it's going to be like the hero clicks all over again. And I'm going to start getting that. I'm going to start getting other than the Superman lines.
Yeah, it really, honestly, I got that one figuring I'm a fan of Arrow. It'd be nice to have an Arrow statue. And I guess I don't always pay attention to size and proportions of them, so I guess I was just assuming it was going to be the same size as those black and white ones that I've been getting, the Batman ones. And I was pleasantly surprised by how large this thing is. But the details as well. It's really just a cool conversation piece. I am starting to run out of room for statues, because I've been getting a lot over the past couple years. Like every month I try to get one. I try to stay in that $50 range. You know what I'm going for them, just because they're rather pricey. $50 to $60. I try to stay in that range. But the Arrow one, just because of the show, I got it. And honestly, it was worth every penny. So if anybody's like thinking about getting that statue, don't be on the fence. Go ahead and grab it. It was cool because they did a reissue. So I ended up grabbing this version of it, and I'm very happy with it. I wish I would have gotten the first version with the cowl pulled over too, just because it would have been neat to have that. But big fan of the show. Are you caught up on the show, or where are you at on it?
I think just the most recent episode I haven't seen.
Yeah, the show has been stellar. I got to say, comic book watching wise, through the course of the week, I'm having trouble staying caught up with my shows. And I mean that in a good way, because I started watching Netflix's Daredevil, which I wasn't going to get Netflix for it because I didn't have a Netflix account, but I'm a big Daredevil fan. Oh my gosh, is that a great show? It's perfect. I mean, absolutely. If anybody's a Daredevil fan out there listening to this, I know it's not DC, but I'm just shouting it out. It's just a great show. But besides that, Gotham has been great. I've been adoring that. Flash has been great. And Arrow has been stellar. iZombie. I don't know if did you start watching iZombie at all?
Oh God, yeah.
What a great show that is too. They take some liberties with the comic on that one, but I get it. They're doing it for TV, but they got the right beats right, and I'm really it's fun. And I would say what's the great thing about every show I just mentioned right now, even though they're all from comics, that's oversimplifying. Each show has their own thing, their own vibe to them. One's a little bit more upbeat than the other one. One's a little bit more comedic than the other. One's darker than the other. And then, Arrow just remains consistently cool. I really love the fact that there's a sense of progression on each of these programs, and I'm really loving the characters and the care and love they're putting into them. We're really in a geek renaissance right now with animated movies, television shows, big screen releases, great comic events that are out right now. I mean, it's really a cool time to be a fan. So I just want to geek out a little bit about some of this stuff just because I'm really loving where it's at. Ooh, Jimmy Bradick, our buddy, I want to shout him out real quick. He sent me, for my birthday and for Christmas, he gets action figures for us. And he usually, does it for, various friends as he's going through. And he's been getting me the Mego ones. They've been doing this company called Figures Inc., I think. And excuse me with the name of it. They're doing new versions of the Mego line that we grew up with as kids.
Yeah.
So they have the molds. And it's licensed. This isn't like some knockoff brand. They've got a license for it. But they just announced that they're starting to do some of the accessories, like the old Batcave and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, man, they're going to pull me in because here's me now. Well, here's the problem with that stuff. That harkens to nostalgia for me. And I'm like, there's certain things that I had when I was a kid, and I've seen them on eBay, and the cost of them on eBay for the originals. I mean, if you're a diehard collector, it's worth it to you, and you have that kind of cash to drop out there. But I was looking for the Wayne Foundation building, which they haven't announced from this Figures Inc. yet. But if they announce a reproduction of that, I will buy it in an instant. Just because I had that as a kid, and it was huge because it was a multi-floor, basically base for Batman. That you could put multiple fingers in. It had an elevator and all that kind of stuff. And you think about the size of the Mego figures, for them to fit in a multiple 4-floor facility, the thing was huge. But I saw it on eBay, and somebody had one that was brand new in the box. It was it went for over $2,000, and I'm like, I can't justify it. I want to, but I can't justify that. But if a company's doing a reproduction of it, for me at this age, I don't care about it being the original, and I really respect people that want the original for the collectability. That's cool. It's from my cost standpoint, as far as, I want to buy a variety of things. I've got to budget those things out. But if they're releasing some of these play sets and reproductions, I will gladly buy some of them, especially the Batman-related stuff. So, for the Batcave, I'm in. And then they had Aquaman versus the Great White Shark. That was one of the play sets that they're releasing. So I don't know, any of that kind of stuff I'm in for. I think, the Mego stuff that's nostalgia for me. That takes me right back to my childhood. I remember as a kid, we had remember North Shore Mall's toy store? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You could go into that toy store and you could get a Mego figure for $1. I mean, it was $1. I mean, that was a lot of money at the time in the 70s. But I remember going in there and for $1 grabbing a Mego figure. I mean, my recollection's a little bit some of that. Maybe my parents threw in, a little something to it. But it wasn't far off from that. And I mean, I would walk out of there. I would do some chores over at my grandmother's, and I would walk out with a Batman or Robin or something like that. And it was just really cool to be able to go to that toy store and then go home and play. So I'm wrong on the whole $1 thing. I remember I had $1, so maybe my dad threw in or something like that. But proportionally, if you take a look at where action figure costs went, I probably wasn't too far off financially from that. I don't remember what they actually cost because obviously I didn't really have a job when I was 5. But it was cool stuff. I'm glad you remember that store too, because that was one I remember. My memories of that are from when I was very little and going there after my grandma's. But speaking of memories, this is a good time to talk about Convergence, because Convergence is really focused on some of the characters that we remember that we haven't been able to read in a while. And we're going to start talking about Convergence Issue 2. And then what we're going to do is over the next 2 episodes, we're going to talk about Week 1 of the Convergence books, the tie-in books, and just kind of talk about some of our thoughts on what was going on with the week 1 books. But we want to stay current and up to date with the main series. So this one is issue 2, The Planet Incarnate. This is by Jeff King as the writer. Carlo Pagulian. It's P-A-G-U-L-A-V. No, it's L-A-Y-A-N. I can't read it right now. Pencils. Jason Paz on inks. Aspen MLT's John Starr with Peter Steigerwald on colors. Travis Lanham on letters. Ivan Rice and Joe Prado and Peter Steigerwald on the cover. Brittany Holzer and Michael Krager, associate editors. Marie Javins is the editor. Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. And this whole event, I just kind of want to do a little shout out to the whole event process because we're going to talk about the first week of books. I sat down on a Friday night and started reading the tie-in issues. You and I had talked about issues 0 and 1 on the podcast. And Friday night was when I first really got to sit down and start reading all of the tie-ins. And my intention was to read 1 or 2 of them. I kept going. I read all of them. I reread them again since, but it was one nightly sitting. And it wasn't because I was forced to or anything like that. I just kept getting pulled in to the event. I just really love the tone of it. I love the sense of time passage for these beings, you know, all of the heroes that are trapped in these bubbles. I like the whole world of Telos and the idea that people have to deal with this moral issue of killing another group in order for your world to survive and how that fits with who you are. And I love that we see that different heroes or different, I should say heroes are a strong word, different cities are okay with things that maybe other cities are not. But even when the bottle drops, you know, you have cities that are, people are just like this mass exodus, like, hey, we're free, let's get out, not realizing that they are in fact on another planet. Once they leave the city, they are somewhere that they don't recognize. That kind of stuff is really cool to me. This is meeting my expectations and going so far beyond it in the sense that I had certain expectations as far as what I was expecting this story to be. And it's gone beyond it. It's telling different stories than I expected. I love that this event feels unique. And I think that's what's really striking me. It doesn't feel like yet another Crisis. And don't get me wrong, I've liked all the Crisis series that have come out. But I like that this is a different sort of story. It's taken the Brainiac concept and really turned into a horror film for me. Because it really adds a sense of when you are trapped in these bottles. I remember growing up as a kid when we read Superman with the bottled city of Kandor. Like, Kandor was cool, right? Like, being shrunk down and going into Kandor. Hey, this is fun. Let's go hang out in Kandor. Well, this is kind of said, you don't want to be a Kandorian, and they don't want to be either. This is not a good thing. You want to be able to go wherever you want on your planet, and if necessary, get on a rocket and go to other places. I mean, you do not want to be trapped like this. The sense of confinement, I think, that they managed to do with this really has struck me as rich. And that's the part of the series that I'm really loving, is just that sense of this is evolving that concept and proving the reasons why these people would want to fight, not only to live and survive, but to be out of these bottles for good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's weird because when I first started reading all the tie-ins, it was before, reading issue 2 of Convergence, and I'm reading these different tie-ins, and I was loving the stories. They're really well crafted stories. Like, oh, that's kind of neat. But the main question that kept running through my head is, why are we doing this? And it was like they were telling me a cool story, so I was happy. And I was glad with the story being told. But like, why do Convergence? Why do all this? I wasn't really seeing the big picture, and in a way, I'm still trying to figure out what the big story that's going to be told here is. So it's, until I get that final piece, that final, why did we do this? It's going to be an interesting exploration for me because I'm enjoying what I'm reading. So I'm happy there. So that's a plus. And I've read the stories a couple of times and I'm enjoying them. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of neat. And a lot of the stuff you talk about with life in the bubble, I like the fact that in a lot of the cities, we had a lot of commonalities in that the people are dealing with the lack of resources and dealing with the hopelessness. That is, I think I was glad to see all the, a lot of the cities, especially the cities in the same universes, were reacting the same way. If this is the kind of people they are, they're going to all react that way. Well, we're seeing that kind of reaction. We're seeing these characters deal with it, similarly. So it's, I'm really digging it, and especially when I read issue 2 Convergence, I was like, okay, I'm seeing that it's like the main Convergence story is kind of going to be this one path, and then we're going to have the the tie-ins that are going to give you now the rest of the story, as well as play out just this planet and talk more about the planet, and what's going on there. So you said it earlier, this is a much different type of event than any event I'm used to. And I think when I first started getting my hands around it, I was more uncomfortable with it. But as you start getting into it, as you start reading more and more of these tie-ins, more and more into the main Convergence title, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm seeing some cool stuff here. Let's see where this goes, see how this handles through the system.
What you were saying before, and this is you bringing up an interesting point. You're having a different experience of this than I am, and I actually quite like that. It's always a fun thing about talking with you about this is when you and I see things differently. I'm glad that you and I don't talk before recording about how we felt about events, because it's always fun for me to kind of riff off of like where you're at. When you were saying that you don't know why they did this story, are you saying like why they chose this as the event, or what are you thinking with that? Because I'm curious about that.
It's why Convergence? Why do it this way? Why have this? Because a lot of times, like you think about some of the other massive events, we've seen why they're doing it. Like the Court of Owls, we're seeing with Crisis on Infinite Earth, we're seeing Identity Crisis, all these big massive events. The Green Lantern, all the various Green Lantern events and wars. We've seen these massive events, and it's stuff that is happening. You kind of see why they're doing it. But when it came to Convergence, they're not redoing the universe. They're not whitewashing it. They're not. This is just this is a side story that is just taking over the titles. And it was something that kind of like I had to get my groove on that. I had to see it for or maybe this is going to have some massive universal impact after everything is said and done. I don't know that part either yet, but it's it's looking like it's kind of going to be a contained Elseworld event where the main universe isn't really getting affected by it. And that's how I'm kind of seeing it, and I'm kind of feeling it. And when I initially started thinking that way, it was throwing me off, and it was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this. I like events that are, I like Flashpoint where they went, let's change everything. I like those big, events, Crisis on Infinite Earth, Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, all this stuff that had these big, massive reeling effects on the whole universe. I was like, yeah, that's cool. So we got this, and it's a great story being told. And it's kind of like, it's like the rest of the universe is on pause. Let's do this. And, it's a different experience for me because I'm liking it, and I'm like, okay, but it is different for me to get my hands around.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit because I actually do, but I understand why you feel the way you do, but I'm going to tell you what I think. And actually, I love your comments. Tell me what you think of my thought process on why they're doing this and what it's all about. I'd say one of the first big things is since the New 52 launched, probably the biggest thing we've heard either at conventions or online is what about our heroes? What happened to them? What happened to the pre-Flashpoint universe? And then that spins off of now that the multiverse is back. What about this world? The Vampire Bats world. How does Future's End tie into this? Which we saw in this issue. There's certain things that people have been asking for. Then obviously there's that group of people that we grew up with. I grew up with the Crisis universe, the pre-Crisis universe. That is here. It's touching on all of the various heroes that haven't been seen. As far as the tie to the current universe, this really is an Earth 2 story. The Earth 2 heroes have dropped into here off of the event that was happening to them. We also saw in Zero's issue how it tied into Doomed. Superman's just not aware of it anymore. So we've got that little tie there. I would be disappointed at the end of this if the universe, and this is where I agree with you immensely, if this ends and there's not an impact of some sort, I will be sorely disappointed because I'm loving this story. The idea of you take these heroes that we know and love and we're so developed that we know their histories, and you put them in a situation where they've got to fight to survive. Some of them are going to agree with that. Some of them are going to disagree with that. Some are going to feel like they have no choice because the people coming to attack them are going to give them no choice. And those are interesting things to deal with. But what happens when you have people who are trying to solve the mystery of Telos and trying to, like the Earth 2, they don't have a city, so they're basically considered, lesser people because Telos can't wrap his head around, you're not a part of me. Each of the planets with a city, they're attached to Telos. They're a part of Telos. So Telos is trying to decide which one of these things are worthy to stick around as a part of this great experiment. But the Earth 2 heroes, while they were kind of trapped in that little that metal gel, in Telos's mind, these are creatures that are a lesser form. They don't matter because they weren't worthy enough to have a city there. So they're almost like gnats in many ways. And even when they escape, they're treated like gnats. It's an interesting sort of story on that end. But I do feel like I'm riding along with the Earth 2 characters because I'm from the New 52. I needed that. I needed that connection for the exact reason that you're saying. How does this connect into my current storytelling? I'm enjoying the New 52. I'm having a real good time. If you're going to give me, this kind of 2-month off, I love the idea of revisiting the universe before Flashpoint. I think that's great. I love visiting pre-crisis. I love visiting, how does Future's End tie into this? We're seeing that this issue. I like that we brought in the Just Imagine Stan Lee world in this issue. That was cool to see that. All those things that I really liked and I grew up reading, I thought it was really cool to see all of them here, and I think there is a point to that. But I like that it's not just that my writing buddies on this one are the Earth 2 characters because they're our current characters. It's interesting that it's their event. That's how it feels for me. And I don't know if it feels that way for you. And it doesn't matter if it does or if it doesn't. I'm just sharing my experience. My experience has been the latching point that I needed, similar to what you were looking for. Because I guess I'm looking for the same thing you are. So I guess why I'm saying I'm not really disputing you. My latch-on point, my current latch-on point is the Earth 2 characters. They're here, which is why I feel like it's connected to me. And I see them being my ride all along, and I want to see how this affects them moving forward. That's me.
Yeah, and I think I get, understanding we both have a lot of similarities in what we're looking and thinking. Like with going back and seeing these different universes, that's part of the reason I am enjoying the story, because we are seeing these characters that have disappeared, that are now they're back and we're getting some stories with them. So I agree with you on that. And that's part of the reason why I'm enjoying it. And that's why I'm really not, there's no negative feelings towards this. It's just, I'm still trying to get my handle on everything of what the story's about. I just want to get, and it's completely getting a lock on it. I think this is going to be for me, this is going to be one of those stories where as everything goes through the process, by the end is when I'm really going to make lock in. Yes, this was a really cool story. This was really good. Right now, it's well written. I'm enjoying the stories being told, but as an event overall, I'm going to have to wait to see things go through to exactly say, yes, this is a good event. And I think, and I don't completely know exactly what the point of Convergence is going to be until probably either, the ending or maybe halfway through when we really see it. Because right now I see Convergence as the Earth 2 story, as well as hey, look at, what has happened in the past. This is giving, it's, as you said, at the cons, a lot of people ask about what about this character? What about this hero? What about this Earth? This is a chance to show, okay, here's what's going on with these characters. Here, let me give you a story with these characters that you really enjoy. And I'm glad they did that because these are characters I like. And I'm I'm so glad you mentioned that was the Stan Lee universe, because I had no idea who those characters were. I'm like, who are these guys? I was eagerly anticipating asking you when we got to that, when we started talking about the issue, because I wanted to see who those characters were, because I'd never really read this Imagine Stan Lee universe. So I'm glad you brought that up. So it's stuff like that where I'm like, okay, what's this? Who's this? Type of things.
Yeah, and that was his Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. You could see that, and they were flashed quickly in this. Did it matter to you? I guess that was going to be one of my questions too, because I had a feeling like along the way there were going to be characters that you didn't know. Does that matter to you, or are you intrigued by that? Does that make you interested in them because they're in the story, or do you feel frustrated when you don't know? And there's not really a wrong answer. I'm just kind of curious, what's that experience like? Because I knew them, so I don't have that experience.
I'm not really frustrated by it. Part of me, I wished, there was, I really wish they'd have, because sometimes in especially some of the tie-ins, they have this universe and they flash it in there really quick, or I'm able to understand which universe is just because I've read it, but part of me wishes they would do a little flash, just an editor note, as to what it is. Some of them did it, some of them didn't, some of them, they let you, in Telos's, explanation, you figure out who it is, so you're like, oh, okay, that's this universe, oh, that's this, so you understand it. But there's been a couple of them where I'm like, which universe is this again? And I gotta, it takes me a while to figure it out, or I don't figure it out. Like with them, I never figured out who that was. It didn't bother me at all. I like the fact seeing them just their introduction and removal from the story. It was a really cool, again, the purpose of it was to show a complete decimation, and they did that, and they did that very well. I was like, oh, okay, let's move on. I'm like, I knew it was another universe somewhere, and I knew when talking to you, I'd find out which one it was.
I really like Telos as a villain. And let me explain why. Or villains, I guess, no, definitely a villain, just I guess because of the reasoning. But it's almost like Telos is this sentient entity that is childlike to a certain extent, because Telos has been Brainiac's storage unit, for lack of a better term, but became sentient along the way due to the nature of the creation of it. Without Brainiac there, Telos is trying to, like a child learning to walk for the first time, trying to find his way. So he's left with all these toys to play with, and has come up with a way to play with them, so there will be only one. Now, here's the reason why I like that. When you get to the weekly tie-ins, and this is where they're really essential for me in this one, like, I don't feel like they're add-on fluff. I feel like they're really important to this story. In each of those issues, I feel like, very similar to what I said for this one, where I feel like the Earth 2 characters are my riding buddies in this one, in the tie-ins, I really feel like I'm riding with whoever the character is that's central to the story. I'll go to Convergence Superman, just to talk about that really quick. In that story, I feel like I'm hanging with Superman, and I'm experiencing this world through Superman and through Lois. When things start to happen and you see Telos up there, I feel like he's very alien, and I'm looking at him the same way that the heroes are, or the people in the issue are. I don't always get that sense in a story, because there's like this traditional kind of like flash between hero and villain and back again, where you tend to ride along more with the villain just as much as you do the hero to understand the motivations of the villain. And that may be where you're feeling some of the differences with this event, because you haven't really felt like this really strong villainous motivation from it. But I quite like that when the tie-in issues come in, they don't feel like fluff to me. I feel like, wow, this is really a chance to see where the Convergence Superman has been, what life has been like during the year after, this is the pre-universe, the previous universe, Superman and Lois, they had a year off where Superman was depowered. And we don't see that whole year, but we're seeing the after effects of it. And I loved those characters. I love the super marriage. So I'm seeing a sense of progression there with those characters. And I feel like it's framed in this big story. I'm looking at it the same way which I'm a big fan of that. Anytime a story makes me ride along with my favorite characters, I'm in. They've really been hooking me. That's been a consistency in all of the tie-in issues, has been the way that the story's crafted. There's really been a great chance for me to ride along with and really enjoy getting to know the backstory of these characters, what has been going on with them, and then thrusting them into this event of, okay, now they're a part of this conflict where there can be only one. It's a different sort of twist. And the main motivation being, you either play along or I will wipe you out. And Telos has proven that. Telos is not messing around here. This isn't oh, you little silly, I'm going to give you a warning here. I'm going to give you a warning there. There is no warning. You are done. You don't play. You are done. I'm wiping you out. I'm breaking my toys. Yes. That type of thing. That sense of dread is really cool in this. And I'm really enjoying the way this part of that story is crafted. I like the villain because it's different. It does feel very different. So I was really enjoying your comments because I think you're wrapping your head around the difference of this story and trying to feel like, and I really have nothing negative to say about anything you said. I think that's an interesting experience that you're having. But I think one of the things I'm really enjoying about this is it isn't a traditional event. It's different in its presentation. And I quite like that it doesn't feel like something I've read before.
Yeah. I do dig that part of it. So it's, and fight or die. That is a really cool motivation. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad they're using it, and I'm glad we're really seeing that play out. And it's going to be it's one of those tough moral quandaries of what do you do? Because the enemy of my enemy is my enemy. Well, no, the enemy of your enemy is going to destroy your world if you don't fight. There's no siding with your enemy to defeat him. If you don't do what he says, he destroys you. He is a small, angry child who will break his toys if they don't do what he wants. And I completely look at him as the villain. I completely look at him as the angry, child. I completely it's all those analogies just looking at him, especially when, in issue 2, when the Earth 2 heroes are able to fight back. Because he's getting distracted, because of everything going on, his attention slipping, and they're able to take advantage of that. That's a classic tactical move that, most, if he had been experienced, if he had dealt with, other, creatures, other people, he definitely would have seen coming. Like, you go back to issue 0 and 1 when he's dealing with Superman, where he takes and just, when he finally gets frustrated with Superman, he uses that cyclone to throw him up in outer space, and Superman flies away. So he got angry with him, threw a hissy fit. So we're kind of seeing that with the Earth 2 heroes. When they start fighting back, he goes, I'm just not going to deal with you. And he just disappears. He just goes back into the planet and goes back to, his little playing with his other playthings, because those playthings aren't going to play nice. So he's just going to forget about them.
Yeah. And one of the things I've really liked with this issue, with the kickoff of it, is it's not an immediate shift to Telos. We get to know some of the characters along the way. Like the Earth 2 Dick Grayson, we got to know him with his wife Barbara as Earth 2 was crumbling apart in the weekly book. I like that here it's a further sense of progression of what he's like as a dad, how he has to tell his son certain stories in order to keep his son motivated and keep him from being scared in the midst of, look what's going on around them in the crumbling of Earth 2. I'm glad we see some of that. This idea that because his wife isn't there and, the law enforcement deal doesn't get him aboard there, he has to make a choice to separate from his son. Do you think his son died there?
No.
Yeah, I don't either.
No, because the ship does get off. It just looked like it didn't. Mm-hmm. If you remember back to with the Earth 2 storyline.
Yes, you're right.
His ship does make it because he's on Varda's ship.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I completely forgot about that. You're right. So they got off there, but Dick Grayson doesn't know that. How do you pull yourself up after that? You just see what looks like your son's ship destroyed.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat because, with him, you see that really cool fashoom, explosion, massive. And you go to a nice horror look on his face, but then you've still got all the action of them, of just the heroes doing what they can. And he's like, I was helping survivors and trying to hook up with Batman at the Ford gun battery when the sky opened again. And that's when he gets snatched. I love just seeing, because we saw part of in the story where he does actually hook up with Batman at the Ford gun battery in the Earth 2 story. So you kind of see where all this played out in the story and then here, and they just snatched up in a moment in time. So it kind of like it always has me wondering how much, could this be a copy? Could this Dick Grayson be a copy of the actual Dick Grayson that was on Earth 2 at the time? Or did he actually get snatched up at the last moment? Because, you think back to the regular Earth 2 story, Darkseid's death beams can go and blast these heroes. But he blasts them right at the time when they get snatched up.
Right.
So the Earth 2 heroes think they're dead, but really they're here. But, it's like, how much of it is a copy? How much is it actual real? What's real? And I think that's the part that I'm like, is this 100% real? Because in the back of my head, for some reason, I got this feeling like these guys aren't actually going to be real.
No, I disagree. I think they're totally real. I think they've been snatched the way that I don't think the Kandorians are not real. I think they were snatched up the same way that a bottled city was. So I think they're completely real. I don't think he's a clone. I think he is the Dick Grayson that went through this.
Okay.
But let's find out.
Yeah, for the argument, I want that to be the case. Mm-hmm. But there's always, and especially like with all the cities, with just how easily Telos is able to destroy them, part of me wonders how much of that is, are they real? Are they actually or are they creations by Telos? He thinks he's snatching up, but in reality, he's like taking a carbon copy of it and then, inputting it into his own planet and doing it. And Telos doesn't even realize he's doing that. I'm like, part of me wonders if there's going to be this big secondary mystery that we don't realize, that it's not there's a Next Generation episode where they beam down to this planet, and turns out everybody on the planet but one person is just a giant hologram.
Yeah.
And the holograms were given sentient life, and they think they're real. They have kids that were never in the original program and all this stuff. And they've grown on generation after generation. And then eventually by the end of the episode, they find out, hey, we're actually holograms, but we're living beings. And the one person who's the real one person remains on this planet with all his friends and all this stuff. And I'm like, part of me is wondering, are they doing that kind of storyline or that type of event? Are these cities real?
I would be sorely disappointed to find out they were fake. And let me explain why. For this story to have real impact, I want the Earth 2 characters to have an after effect from this. I want, if one group survives, one city survives, I want them to somehow exist after this. I want there to be impact. There needs to be impact from this. And if it's all a dream, that's kind of a cheap way out, if that makes sense. And it's funny, the episode, as you were talking about the episode from Next Generation, it's a great episode, and I love that episode. So I was like nodding. I'm like, what a great reference. And I don't see this being that type of story, though, where that's what's happening here. I think to Telos, they're not real. Not in the sense, not in the sense of the way that you and I are. I don't, it'd be, if you and Ann were like sitting around an ant farm and commenting on it, I don't think we would be talking about them the same way we'd be talking about a group of people that we shrunk down and put in a jar, because we'd know they were people and we would view them that way. Telos views these as an ant farm. He's not connecting with them as people in the sense, especially with the way he's dismissive of the Earth 2 characters. I have a question to you about Earth 2, because I'm so glad you brought up the fact that the ship did in fact survive. With Dick Grayson having gone to the gun batteries, did he know then that his son's ship survived, or is he still under the impression that his son's dead? Because that part I'm a little confused on.
I'm assuming he's under the impression that his son's dead. Mm-hmm. That he's still under it, because you think back to that sequence, all the craziness, he had no idea of the ship making it out of there. Because, if you kind of remember back to what was going on throughout that whole time, right. I don't even know how much rounds, I don't even know how much firing he and Batman were able to pull off, because of the craziness that was going on. Because I know I thought they only had like one shot, left, and and they were trying to, just buy any type of time they could for any of the ships. So I'm under the impression he's assuming right now that his kid's dead, that the ship never made it to orbit.
I'm thinking that too. I wanted to know if because I was obviously so clueless on this. I was under the impression that he didn't know about the sun either.
Yeah.
I really love seeing each of the Earth 2 characters here, though, and I like Yolanda Montez. I'm glad we're seeing more with her into this story, this expansion of Earth 2, because that, I think, is going to be a great thing coming out of this. We're seeing characters focused on that weren't focused on in the Earth 2 series or were focused on towards the end of the weeklies. We're seeing our main characters, so we've got the linchpins there. That's what I said. They're really my lens into this whole thing. The battle that went on, seeing it rage. Were you surprised to see the characters coming in from Future's End?
No, I thought that was a good choice to go with because that's a hardcore. If he wanted to make an impact and just say, "See, this is how much power I yield," that's a good choice. Because it's kind of interesting some of the selections he's made throughout these throughout the companion pieces as to who are the different champions. But if you're going to pick something, this right here is a good choice. Just like, the Flashpoint Hawkman and Hawkwoman are a good choice because they're really killing machines. And the Future's End, cyborg, hero creations are really hardcore killing machines. And that's a good choice. So it was a slaughter, and it's kind of interesting just how the perverse sense of accomplishment that Telos has about, see what I did. This is how much power I have. Ha ha ha. And it's that, that kind of that child mindset that he wants to show his captive, his one little toy. See, this is how much power I have, and the heroes are like, this ain't power, kid. This is perversion. This is wrong. And I did love seeing this, the conflict between the heroes and him, because it's the true hero villain relationship. Yeah, we have these other characters fighting, and some are evil, some are good, some are, whatever, so we do have that, but the true villain of this story is Telos. And it's funny because you think back to when we first were talking about this, I was wondering if they would be able to persuade him or change his mind or, show him the error of his ways. And now I'm thinking, that ain't gonna happen. This ends Thunderdome style, man. This is Highlander. There can be only one, and it's gonna go until there is a final champion. It's just, how do the Earth 2 heroes that don't have a city survive, and can they get other people off the planet? Maybe they can get some of the other heroes or some of the other people off this planet and save them. So it's, there's a lot of still question as to where this is going to go, but right now I'm like, dang, this is some neat stuff.
Talk about a continued evolution of a character. The Green Lantern, our Earth 2 Green Lantern, who I've really grown to like Alan Scott. And he tries to tap into the planet. He's like, you know what? I'm not connected to Earth anymore. I've been powerless. What happens if I try tapping into this one? And I'm going to be very curious to see after this story what happens when Alan Scott tries to tap into a new planet, as they move forward. Because Alan's not done. Alan's able to tap in because of his nature. And I'm going to be curious to see what this character does. But I love that was a very different experience for him. And he was actually connected to Telos because of Telos is the planet.
Yeah.
So it becomes a different sort of process for him and spends him in a different way, but shows his sheer power. The fact that I'd love to see, this is the geeky part of me, Alan Scott on Mogo.
Oh God, that'd be awesome.
Because of the way he taps into a planet.
Yeah.
That's a living Green Lantern planet. What would that be like? So that'd be a geeky team up somewhere down the road. I'd love to see just with how it works out.
And I'm thinking next planet he's on, he's going to be able to tap into that planet, and he's going to be able to draw his power from that planet. And I think that's going to be the evolution, because I'm assuming we're not getting rid of these characters, that they're going to survive. And I completely agree how cool that sequence with you. Just now, I just noticed something. And it's funny how we always talk about with my art read-throughs and multiple read-throughs, and just this second, I just noticed something, and I'm like, oh my God, is that awesome?
What?
The page right before Alan's tying in, right as, Superman's about to punch Telos. Look at the helmet. The panel right before that, you can see the reflection of him coming at him. I didn't notice that until now.
Yeah, that's cool stuff.
Beautiful, beautiful artwork there. I'm like, oh, that is awesome. And I'm kidding, because it's right very clear and larger than life. You can see it, but for some reason, whenever I was reading those panels, I kind of either always jumped to the punch because that was a cool look, but I just noticed it now. I'm like, dang, that's neat. Cause it's a really cool reflection, great artwork there. That's awesome.
This is exactly why I periodically will page through previously read comics just to kind of take a time and just kind of look at the art. And I'm not talking about the art read through. I'm talking about just casually kind of going through it because of just what you're saying. Because I'll be honest, I didn't catch that till you pointed out just now either. And I love that stuff. I think, the artist takes a lot of time to put in those details. I like to reread the book because of those details. It makes it, when people talk about the expense of comics, this is where, those needs for multiple read-throughs in order to really grasp and enjoy all the Easter eggs and things that are put in the artwork and the story dialogue and, the intention of what's going on in the book. All of a sudden, there tends to be a lot more value to these titles with the amount of time I spend with them. Because I like to revisit and enjoy that part of it. So I really encourage people, don't be afraid to take a little extra time with your comics. You pay a lot for these things. And then, all of a sudden, I don't feel that I pay too much for my comics when I'm doing stuff like that. I genuinely don't. It's kind of a fun part of the whole process.
Yeah, rereadability and just that kind of enjoyment does kind of make things, a little bit better and a little bit nicer for me. And I agree with you. I'm glad that I'm doing this more, and I'm doing this more in books that we're not even talking about on the show. I'm just going back through and, let me just reread some of these things, and I just take my time with it, and it's kind of neat.
I found that I do it in general because there's a lot of times where you and I, in the course of the week, will kind of make up what we're doing for the podcast. There's sometimes where we're very scripted where we're like, hey, you know what, this event's coming up, like, Convergence. We're gonna be talking about this, so let's plan for that. But there's other weeks where you and I literally say, for fun this week, let's just pick 4 books that we really enjoyed and talk about them. So we don't know going in. So it's fun because I tend to read all of my books that I read that week the same way that I would read a book for the show. And I just enjoy the experience of enjoying a book over and over for various different avenues of learning what's going on in the book. I just find that it really improves my reading experience. I did it as a kid, though. Growing up, this is how I read comics. You'd reread it like 4, 5, 6 times. You'd page through and go back to favorite sequences and read them again. I mean, I'm doing the same stuff that I did as a kid. It's making me enjoy comics again the way that I did as a kid, rereading them and going through them again. I find that there are things that I didn't understand previously that I'm understanding. Convergence is a great example of that. The story, there's a lot going on here because you've got the main story with Telos, but then there's all these sub-stories going on of character histories, character progression, what's going on with them, how do they feel about the event, how does that affect what happened to them? Because these guys just came off of a planet that was wiped out. I mean, they're still reeling from that. I'm really liking how this is playing out because of that part of it. I love seeing them come together again because they've never officially been a team. They just happen to be from the same planet. They weren't called the Justice Society or anything like that. They've just been from the same planet. I love the familiarity when the band gets back together again and they're all in the field after Telos is kind of off the scenes for now. And they're taking the information that they found from Alan Scott and talking about how there's something underground. There's something in a ruined city that's nearby that Telos is afraid of us finding. And Telos is afraid of. That quest, of like, let's start learning more about Telos. It's actually heading things in the direction you want to go. What you were talking about earlier, Jim. I like the sense of discovery in this. There are certain things that we as the reader don't know yet. There are certain motivations that we don't know, certain backgrounds to Telos that we don't know that are a part of all this that I want to discover along the way. And I'm really loving the fact that this is a voyage of discovery with the Earth 2 characters. I think that's where I'm saying I'm connecting with them, is we don't have all the answers yet. We're finding them along the way with the heroes. I feel like I'm riding with them. When they're collecting there in that desert area and then they start going off, I feel like I'm running with them. That's always a cool thing to me.
Now, did you get a little woohoo moment when Batman said, Grayson and I will meet you there. I'm like, yeah, yep. Batman and Dick Grayson teaming up again. Mm-hmm. I kind of did a hoop for that one. And I liked Grayson's dialogue. Wait, did Batman just say Grayson and I?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that, especially when he said he's going to Gotham. We'll need allies if Talos shows up again. And like, allies, oh boy, going to Gotham, getting allies. This is going to be interesting. And I was really glad that we did get to see, that play out, because that was something I was like, just the anticipation of what it was going to be led to actually some really cool, wonderful moments for both Thomas and Bruce, as well as some great stuff with between Dick Grayson, Alfred, and this universe's Barbara Gordon. I was like, man, this is neat. This is the kind of stuff that I did want to see, these interactions and these type of dealings. I was very happy with that.
Hold on. I'm going to correct you there. Between Dick Grayson, Alfred, and Oracle.
Oh, yes. Oracle.
Because it was sweet to see that it was our pre-Flashpoint universe here, and I loved the way that I love seeing Batman in that Batman Inc. outfit. That Batman outfit that we were seeing here. It was great to see the meeting between, and you know what, I was glad they didn't have the dialogue between the two of them. We don't know what was spoken between those two. That was a really good choice. We saw basically thinking of what, you see Alfred knew in that moment what I could never see. That what Thomas Wayne would discover at the top of those stairs was a young man whose father's death propelled him into his present role. And young Bruce Wayne, and what Bruce Wayne would discover was a deeply disturbed man at the end of his life whose son's death propelled him into his. Really cool. A wounded father, a wounded son, that moment, and leaving that unspoken, not having the dialogue between them. Yes, as a geek, I would love to read Convergence 2.5 that plays out that sequence where we read all that dialogue, but I think there's a certain point when an author makes a choice to say, this is a moment where letting the artist show you the visual and you running in your head what that dialogue must be like between them was a far better choice. It was really well handled there. I was really into it.
I think we are going to see that, later in the story, because you have that continuing comments where, I wouldn't find out until later what they talked about up there. And by then it would be too late. Mm-hmm. So we're going to find out what exactly they kind of planned and they talked about. We're not going to get the full story of it, but we're going to get We're going to get the strategery these two came up with while they were there. So
I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm going to tell you what I think it is.
Okay.
Thomas is dying.
Oh, definitely from the miracle. Right. Miraculu, or however you're pronouncing it. I'm kind of tongue tied today.
But by then it would be too late. I think this is going to be how Dick Grayson becomes the next Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm guessing that.
Or here's the other thing I was thinking, because that's option one going through my head.
Okay.
Option two, I'm thinking, is this Thomas Wayne, because we saw in Flashpoint where he sacrificed his universe so his son could live. He may do that again. He may sacrifice either himself so this version could live, or I don't know. I'm thinking
they're not in the fight, Jim. Oh, you mean to keep him from getting killed or something?
Yeah,
because they're not one of the cities in the battle.
Right.
They're not part of. They could be only one. They're kind of the outliers. They're the rats scurrying through a maze, so to speak.
I'm thinking he may say, "Hey, when it's your turn to fight, I got your back." And be the little ointment, the little fly in the ointment, the little, hey, guess what? You didn't see this coming. Mm-hmm. Where that may be Thomas's plan is, we're going to start throwing off these fights.
I see them wanting to take down Talos. I think they're going to stick to that plan. That's my take on this one. Is I think the Earth 2 characters, their main focus in their story, they're going to interact with these worlds the way that we're seeing them, but they're interacting for the purpose of gathering allies, gathering intel, gathering things to use against Talos, because they're going to try to take down Talos. I think that's going to be the main focus of their story. I don't think we're going to see him I don't know. I don't. My personal feeling is I don't think we're going to see that. But that's based on my own, very similar to how you're speculating and your developing opinion. That's what my speculation is. So I could be wrong. I don't really care. My take on this is I see the Earth 2 characters continuing to follow their present path and having more cool opportunities. I think what we're going to see is Thomas Wayne encounter Batmen that maybe aren't as altruistic as his current meeting that he just had.
What about a Team Batman? He starts gathering the Batmen, and that's the alliance, and starts forming an alliance among the Batmen.
Are you going to leave your city to be wiped out to go off as a member of Team Batman? I don't know. That would be my question on this, because remember, the thing that throws all that off is Telos' edict.
Yeah,
you choose not to fight. You choose to rebel against me. I will wipe out your city. It makes this event very different because I think you're going to see certain team-ups like you're talking about, but I think we're going to see a consequence of those team-ups as well, and I don't know that you're going to get that league of them. But who knows? I mean, who knows? Maybe there will come a point where Telos can't maybe they'll find a way to shut down Telos to a certain extent, and they'll be able to do something like that to maybe finish him off. I don't know. It's an interesting story because I kind of want to see the journey. I guess I don't see that happening because of that, though. I think we're more inclined to see the pre-Flashpoint Batman against Vampire Batman before we would see that.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think you're right on that one. And it's funny because as I was reading through this, you get these really cool wounded father, wounded son moments, and you get those stuff, and then you also are getting some cool, just outlining shots with the red and blue Superman, and you get the Alfred and Dick Grayson dialogue, and there was a lot of really neat emotional, then flash to high energy, emotional, flash to high energy. They kept going back and forth, and I really liked that pacing, that style. That's why I said I really enjoy the story being told. Mm-hmm. And so any comment I made, I don't want anyone taken away from that we're getting solid work here. It just, I'm still trying to figure out what is Convergence. And it's as you go through the process, I am enjoying it. And it's like these moments, and especially like just earlier back just then, when we're just now flipping through and I saw the Batcave, I noticed the Prowler from the movie that I didn't notice before. I'm like, oh, there's that. Oh, that's cool. Glad they threw that in there. So it's kind of neat how they throw in just the different stuff.
You mean the Tumblr?
Yeah, I said Prowler. Sorry.
That's all right. I really like the discovery, and I know I've mentioned that earlier, but for me, what I like about that is I think nowadays we're used to, because we find out so much ahead of time when we read a story, there's sometimes you already know the entire premise, you know every little nuance, and then you're just going in and seeing the execution, if that makes sense. With this one, I like that we knew the premise, the basic premise, but you keep saying I want to know what Convergence is. I like that. Yeah. I like that this is a journey of discovery. We don't know everything. It hasn't all been spoon-fed to us, and I don't want to know. I want to experience it. I'm finding that refreshing. And it's different than I'll go on the internet sometimes and I want to be spoiled on certain things because I want to know details and facts and I want to revisit a story maybe that I don't remember clearly or something like that. And I don't mind that kind of stuff. We do a spoiler podcast for a reason. It's about discussing the journey and enjoying that together. Spoilery. But the intention with this is to either touch base with people who maybe weren't going to read it and want to see maybe is this something I should jump on and I want to know the details to make that call, or to really bask in it with the people that are currently reading it with us as well. So I think we meet, a couple different audiences with that. This part is totally fun for me. This sense of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you figure we've seen a lot of solicits now for what the DC universe looks like after this, but because of what you mentioned, because we don't know if anything pays off into this, all we know is that there's an Earth 2 book after that. That's all we know from this story. Other than that, and out of the resolution of this, we don't know, are we going to lose an Earth 2 character from this or a bunch of Earth 2 characters from this? Don't know. Are we going to have characters from this bleed over into the current universe? We have no idea of that. And those are big factors in all this. How does this pay off and impact on the main universe after this? Who knows? I like that. I like that there's nothing solicited right now that really gives me anything other than the fact that I know that there is going to be an Earth 2 book after this. And I saw the cover. I know what characters are on it. I know there's some costume changes, and from the solicit, I know that there's a potential change to one character in this in particular. But I don't know how they get there. Could they be what you said, and these are just clones here? Maybe. I am believing that the first issue of that Earth 2 Society is going to be a follow-up to this. That's kind of my take on that whole thing. But I'm fine with that. I don't mind. I'm going along with this story. I like that they're separate from the story because that doesn't give me a sense of how is the Convergence event itself going to end for these worlds that are fighting each other. What does that mean for them? Are any of them going to survive, or none of them going to survive, or are all of them going to survive? I don't know. Well, we've seen some die, but one of the things I want to talk about is when we see Green Lantern going through and we see Superman Red and Superman Blue, and we see some of the female heroes, that world in there. I'm glad we get to see just like glimpses of some of these other worlds in this main book, so we can see their reaction to it. But when they come across people that were executed, and they were executed because they happened to be from a different city, and this is because of the Edict of Telos. So here's the question: where do we don't know here? Did heroes kill him? Did villains kill him?
Well, actually, we do know. Well, we don't. It's in. This happened in the Nightwing Oracle.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
Because you see the feather from this.
Yes.
They were slaughtered by.
Thank you.
The Hawks.
Yep.
And I love the fact that because initially you see that, and I'm like, wait, that, and then I saw the feather, and as she grabs it, she's like, they were killed in cold blood under the flag of surrender, murdered them. Why? And you see just their emotional reaction. She's pulling the emotion from the feather. I was like, man, that is cool. And I like the fact that it was her because of her previous connection to the animals. So she's still able to get something from them and see, just get the whole vibe from it. And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And it's something I'm glad I had the side stories that I could see that happened. I knew that happened.
Good for you, because I totally wasn't focused on the feathers and relating it to that particular event, which is sad because I'm a huge Hawk fan. But I'm going to take back what I said then. Were they killed by heroes? Were they killed by villains? Were they killed by Hawks? Because they're a category of their own, because they're just that cool.
Well, you can't really call them heroes. You can't really call them villains.
No, that particular group of Hawks, you certainly cannot.
Yeah.
We're going back into the sequence here with the two Batman and Dick Grayson getting his suit from Batman. The silent moment when his dad's walking away and you see Bruce just there very solemn in the background. They gave him a vehicle. They gave him, access to equipment and weapons and things like that to be able to move forward. I just thought that moment, just seeing the pre-Flashpoint Batman standing there, in that moment, I was like, oh, dude, I miss you. Yeah. Even though the current continuity really is a continuation of sorts of that continuity, I so miss that guy. And I like that matters, though, because when we see pre-crisis stuff in this, and we see pre-crisis stuff in other series, when they brought back the Golden Age Superman, for example, when they did Infinite Crisis, I was glad to see him. I miss that guy, and his wife Lois and all that being brought in. So I like that kind of stuff. I'm glad when they do this. Now, that Court of Owls mask, was that from the pre-Flashpoint world? And
Thank you.
Okay.
Because I was wondering if that was a Court of Owls mask as well.
Because that's what that is, right?
Well, only thing I think it could have been maybe as part of the Android, but I initially thought that was a Court of Owls mask.
I have one of those on the shelf because I got that trade version with the mask that came with it. So I've got that on my shelf and I'm looking at it. It's identical, dude.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if that was a Court of Owls mask or if that was the face, the robot face. But my first thought was it was Court of Owls. So where the heck, again, it's this mysterious spot that Telos is worried about, that could maybe get them off the planet, could maybe do something. Maybe it's an Earth that fought back. Maybe it's an Earth that has a power to fight back. Maybe it's something. It's an unknown factor. And again, it was one of those things I was like, oh, that's kind of neat.
Well, and does it have to do with, is time passage different outside of the bubble than inside the bubble? That's going to be an interesting question out of this whole thing, because Alan Scott says, whatever happened here happened long ago, but this place feels familiar. So why does it feel familiar to him? And what's going on there? Is that familiar because of his connection to Telos? Is it familiar because it's from an Earth? What's going on there? I'm very, very curious. But in the end, we get to see that the person that's rescued is Deimos. Do you remember from Warlord?
Okay, I was trying to remember where the heck this guy came from.
Mm-hmm. So, they're bringing this character straight from Warlord into this. Again, Travis Morgan's whole story was traveling to a different dimension and that kind of thing. So now we've got, that wizard involved in this. Can you trust him? Can you not? Who knows how this is going to go?
Normally, you can't trust the guy. So.
No.
Maybe he can get off the planet and he'll use them to get off the planet. Mm-hmm. They'll be screwed, but he'll be fine, because that's kind of Deimos's mindset. As long as he's okay, he'll be. It's all works. You guys, thanks for the help. I'm gone. Is what we could end up getting from this. But part of me thinking the Alan sensing is like he sensed it was because of his connection with Telos.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I guess that's why I was bringing it up that way. Was that what was drawing it? Can we talk about Convergence Superman? Just kind of, because I already started talking about it. So do you mind if we kind of start with that one as our first book that we talk about? So Convergence Superman, Jim, as I'm looking over this book, and we'll kind of talk casually about these just because there's so many of them. I want to try to talk about as many as we can. I loved this because what I hoped these books would be, seeing as we're revisiting these characters and getting a chance to spend some time with them again. Now, especially the pre-Flashpoint universe, you and I were big fans of DC Universe when it was going on then, and to be able to revisit these characters again and see they were in this bottle for a year, and we get to see in Gotham a Superman who's like, I can't give up. I'm still Superman. You know what I mean? I don't have my powers because of what's happening in the bottle, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop being Superman. I still need to do something. I want there to be order here. There's heroes fighting in Gotham, but he still feels the need to somehow be involved. And he's working with Lois. This is the part where there's that part of me that's like, oh, Superman and Lois together are so good, and it shows such a good relationship with Superman and Lois. I love that Jimmy Olsen appeared in it, and there's a reason for them to be in Gotham. And because they're there, we get to see the fight and the battle. All of a sudden, because of the fact that Telos is dropping the bubble, just in time, Superman becomes Superman again and goes, don't worry, Lois, I'm fine. I was geeking out. I loved seeing him fight and kind of try to adapt what he learned from Batman into what he's doing there and saying, I can still be of impact. Because that's who he is at his core. Superman is not his powers. He's the guy, Clark Kent, the guy who is raised to be by his family. That's always been Superman to me. There's something to that I think just works at his core. For as hokey as Superman 3 could be at times, I geek out at that movie when there was that fight sequence between Clark and evil Superman.
Yeah.
Because you kind of see at the core what I really think is the distinction of who Superman is. It's not the costume, it's not the powers, it's the guy that's inside. And you see that here. But, oh, what a great art choice. Lee Weeks doing the artwork on this one with Brad Anderson on colors. Because you just get this classic sense of, I'm fine. I was just like, hoorah! And then, the battle goes on and Superman kind of gets to pop in and be himself again in that moment and save his pal.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. And I loved how, because, when the big dome message first starts, because when I'm reading through this, initially, I see the dome message, but it didn't really dawn on me once that, when the message pops up, that's when the dome drops. And that's when the powers come back. And even throughout that point when he hits him with the flame, then he's standing there, I had to think for a second, and it was one of those, Of course, the message. It was one of those realizations. I love the fact that I had that moment, even though I'd already read a couple other stories, and you knew how it happens and how everything goes down with once the dome goes down, powers come back. But it was a really cool, just revelation moment for me. Even though we could have very easily seen that coming, there was still a surprise.
Yeah, I agree with you. That part was really cool. Here's the funny thing, too, with the underwear on the outside, even though it's a joke and all that stuff, Superman can make it work. And when you're Superman, you can dress however you want.
You know what? As much as I do like the new costume, I do like no underwear on the outside and all that, this is still a classic Superman look for me. And I still love this Superman look with just, red underwear, yellow belt, and just everything, how it's, the cloth look to everything, not battle armor. Even though I like the Kryptonian battle armor, there's still some coolness with this outfit, with this costume. This is still a Superman. Plus, he's got the little curly Q hair thing that I always like. I always like that for some reason on Superman, because that's as iconic to me as the big red S on the chest.
Now, Lois having a baby is because he was powerless, right?
Exactly. That's how I took it. He was a regular, everyday, normal guy.
Here's my question on this one. Because he's powered, what does that mean for the baby?
I'm hoping that means she's able to have a normal delivery and then the kid develops powers. Because we've seen Elseworld stories where the kid develops a super kick and Lois dies. And I don't want to see that. Yeah, I want to see, again, this is one of those things where I'd like to see this universe continue on. I'd like to see this city survive and then go forward. And, we have a super baby. And then as the kids grows up, he or she, develops powers on their own. There's so many different stuff that I'd like to see come out of this. And I was like, yay, the super baby, yay, married Lois and Clark. I'm happy. And it's, going back to, going back to those stories that, I enjoyed and, bringing back everything that I loved. I was like, yes. So that's why I was happy. I'm happy with these stories. And I just want to see where this goes. I want to see, what is this going to happen? Are these guys going to survive? Is this going to be the end of this? Can we get it so everyone survives?
Seeing Superman versus Captain Thunder here was really great, because I've always loved the fights between Superman and Shazam, but I like that we haven't seen this yet. This is the Flashpoint Shazam going up against Superman, and them having a real battle for the first time. Captain Thunder doesn't know this Superman. Project Superman was a very different character. We're seeing the Batman here is Thomas Wayne, but this is Casino owning Thomas Wayne. It's a very different sort of Justice League that's coming out of. They weren't really the Justice League in all this, but Cyborg being in this and Abin Sur. I was glad to see these characters back. I really enjoyed Flashpoint as an event, and I think a testament to that is when you get a writer who clearly took the time to understand the characters from the universes that he was reading. I mean, this is a Dan Jurgens story. I mean, Dan Jurgens knows what he's doing. He knows how to do the research and make sure to get the right tone and the right beats for the characters. This is the guy. This is the guy that killed Superman and told iconic stories with that Superman. This story really works. It hits all the right emotional beats. The thing that I thought that he did the best was the Thomas Wayne moments like this. They're Gotham. Is it from Barry Allen's world? One where Bruce is alive? I thought that world, that timeline would replace ours. If it meant my son would live again, so much the better. So that whole sequence of events, but then he has to realize, what happens if I have to face my son? Yeah. What if the Batman from there is alive, and what if it's my son? What do I do then? I love that. This is the emotional drama that I want to see here. But then Project Superman, this is a kid who really, if there's somebody who's socially inept, it's this kid, because he was trapped. He hasn't had a lot of experience. So his sense of boundaries are not real strong. Lois died in his world. So now in his mind, the kindest person I've ever met who I truly care about me, who I thought was dead, lives. He's seeking her out because he doesn't get it. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. I love this. I love how this story's going. It's got the really great beats. This was one where immediately, this is the first book I read out of the batch, and it's so delivered everything I was hoping it would give out of the starting gate. What a great cliffhanger at the end, too. the city's going to die, Lois. I've got to save you. In the meantime, she's calling for Clark, and Clark's being overwhelmed by Green Lantern, Cyborg, and Captain Thunder because of Jimmy Olsen's poor timing.
Yeah, Jimmy, bad timing there, buddy. Yeah, Superman's pal did not help him out at all on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny because I just realized I had I say stupid stuff all the time, and when we were talking about the Convergence issue 2, I was talking about how Thomas Wayne had sacrificed himself to save this universe, and I was thinking this Thomas Wayne, not Earth 2. I got the two confused.
Did you really?
Yeah, and I just realized that because as we were talking, going, this is the guy who sacrificed himself, not that other one.
Right. Yeah, this is a casino owning Thomas Wayne that was in there.
Man. I'm confusing myself with Batman.
you need a timeline to follow.
I need a timeline, and and it's funny because with this one, it seems to me we're getting a lot of the Flashpoint heroes versus the pre-Flashpoint heroes. A lot of the pairing ups. That's what we're getting, and I think that's going to be kind of an interesting storyline. What's going to happen? Which timeline's going to survive? Yeah.
You want to talk Convergence Batgirl, number 1?
Sure.
All right, Convergence Batgirl. This was one that I was really interested in. I'm glad these are 2-issue ones because, for me, anytime they're dealing with the pre-Flashpoint characters, this is Red Robin. This is Tim Drake that we saw from, Lonely Place of Dying straight on through. This is Cassandra Cain. This is Spoiler, going all the way into being Batgirl. They were trapped in here, and they had to develop a life for themselves during that year. I like that these stories weren't in the same format flow, where some of them dropped you into present day and then told things through flashbacks, whereas others didn't. Like this one, we find out that Stephanie Brown was the person selected to be the champion, and Tim and Cassie wound up there by accident. So she's not confident because she hasn't been Batgirl. She hasn't been in that role in a while. She gave up that life and learned to be a better Stephanie Brown in a way that she could be helping out the world and being a productive part of it in the bottle, which is, I would imagine some people went completely bonkers in the bottle. But her battle's going to be with Catman. And it's a different sort of Catman than the one we're seeing in Secret Six. It's not that Catman. I was glad that it was a version of Catman.
Well, is Catman the actual target, or is it Grodd that's the target? Because Grodd went after Cassandra Cain. Uh-huh. Yeah. I get the two confused.
Which is the real champion that
right.
Spoiler's supposed to be fighting? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking because he thought he got them confused as to which one he's supposed to go after.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to go after Spoiler, but he went after the other one instead.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, to see which one he's supposed to go after.
Because what happens with the rules if he went up against, Spoiler, he would have destroyed her quickly. He's up against the Batgirl who's really, really good. So what if she takes the guy out?
But they're having some kind of weird side effects. Red Robin and Cassie are having some kind of weird side effects in all this. Because remember, Red Robin isn't totally himself in this.
Yeah, he's acting all goofy. And it's, I think part of it is the blend over from other universes, maybe.
Mm-hmm. But I think some of it might have been also them being the way they were pulled into all this. I don't know. I really liked the showing of Stephanie and Cassie trying to build a life in this world after a year. Because what would you do? How do you think you'd handle that? Like, all of a sudden, the greater Cleveland area where you and I live is put into a bubble. We can't go anywhere else. Like, you and I like to travel. I mean, we're not like crazy travelers in the sense where we're going somewhere every month. We're not jet setters on that end, but we like to, during the course of a year, go on a couple different trips and stuff like that. We're far from homebodies on that end. It's nice to get away and kind of refresh and regroup and go back to work. You can't do that anymore. And not only that, as far as forgetting work and all that type of thing, by the fact that you're closed off from the rest of the world, that greatly limits media that's being brought in. That greatly limits technology and entertainment and stuff in general from the outside. You know, if you think about how many things are imported and flown in from different places, your food sources all of a sudden start to become an issue. Medical starts to become an issue. But new entertainment starts to become an issue. Your daily life is changed drastically by the fact that your planet, your home, has shrunk monumentally. It's good stuff.
Yeah, one of the things I always love about the zombie shows are when they show just surviving in the zombie apocalypse without the benefit of medicine and a food where you can just drive down to the grocery store or hit a fast food place and just seeing the people survive. So that was something I was really enjoying from this. And I love the fact that, guinea pigs and hamsters were becoming fine dining, and they're having cooking shows where they talk about different ways you can season it. And, guinea pigs, hamsters, rabbits, stuff like that, where they reproduce fast. The food matures quickly so you can eat it. It's not a lot, but it's something that keeps you going. You can maybe every so often have, a gerbil burger, or, something like that, or, a roast, kind of very small one, but still some type of meat. Your primary diet is going to be vegetation because that's going to be easier to grow, but you start doing this stuff. And I like just those notions, and especially that one, the zoo scene where they're like, we got to free the animals. And the one guy gets gutted by the lion. I'm like, oh man, the guy who's freeing the lion saw why they need to stay in cages.
One of the sequences that I really loved in this particular issue was when Cassie is trying to help Stephanie with how to fight again. And how the fact that year off, when you've completely given up training, that's not something that you can just get back. Batman, let's go to Nightfall. One of my favorite stories of Batman. I am a big fan of the end of Nightfall. When Batman came back and he was retraining himself again, his back had been broken, he'd been in the wheelchair, a long amount of time had passed. Bruce Wayne isn't just all of a sudden able to walk again and fight again. That muscle memory's gone. He has to bring that back, and he goes through that gauntlet with Shiva. Loved that. I mean, that was probably my favorite sequence of the whole event because it was the rebuilding of the Bat, and we saw him go through this really brutal sequence of events in a way to bring himself back. This was cool because this harkened back to that kind of concept for me. Just because she wants to don, even though she hasn't put on a ton of weight or anything like that, she hasn't been training. This isn't Stephanie Brown that's been running through the night and trying to be Spoiler or trying to be Batgirl again. She has given that life up. Her body isn't ready for it. So when she stands up, it's admirable, that she puts her hands up, but she's sitting here going, what was that? I was reacting. Reacting isn't fighting. Yes, it is. Really? Your body disagrees. And I love, because Cassandra Cain, before she could speak, her whole MO was that she can read the combatant. She can visually read the combatant and pick up their fighting style because that's why Batman always said that Cassandra Cain was a better fighter than him. And I always loved that about the character, that little edge to her. I always thought there was that mystique when she was first introduced was really cool about her. I'm glad they so brought this into this where she's looking at her and saying, oh, you're not ready for this. You're not ready for this at all. There's a huge problem here and you need to talk about it. That stuff is really great. I loved that sequence because these should feel like revisiting old friends. And they shouldn't feel awkward. They shouldn't feel like they're forced. It should feel like a real progression. I also loved in the TV sequence, if you take a look at the newscaster, it harkens back to like the Dark Knight Returns, in some of the art sequences there, breaking news. I'm glad they kind of went that route with the art sequence for the newscaster. If you remember Dark Knight Returns when they were doing those sequences, that was that kind of art style. It worked real well in this. I really enjoyed this, everything about this issue, in the sense that it really felt like hanging with old friends again who were then dropped into this world. And I think that's the part that really worked for me with these tie-ins. And that's why I kept saying it was nice that when I read these, Telos felt like this outside thing, like we were looking outside the bottle with them, as opposed to us seeing inside the bottle with Telos. That wouldn't have worked so well for me. I want to be in the bottle. I want to be hanging with them. This is my focal point. And I was glad that they chose to really focus us on the pre-Flashpoint characters in this and seeing their reactions to the combatants that they're facing. Because these are the characters I want to hang with again for a little bit. I want to see the old universe again. I was a big fan. It's cool to see these characters again. They hit all the right beats. Great writing on this because of that.
Yeah, and I like the fact that it is comfortable that what we're getting now. You know, you said it because as you were talking, I'm just sitting there quietly nodding my head because we are jumping right in where we left off with spoiler. We do get that vibe, and I like the fact that, as I said, I love seeing life inside the dome and seeing how they're surviving, especially how some of them have given up on the hero side, and in a way, she was being her own hero. But it was more about just being a strong person, helping society, doing the nursing stuff, helping, and even just, kind of that moment with between them and Firefly where she just basically looks at him going, really? You're going to do this? Yeah, I just basically brushes him off and ignores him. And it kind of like deflates what he was going to do. And the whole time we've got, Red Robin just staring down just in case if anything had gone down, he would have swooped in and thrown down. But it wasn't needed because life in the dome is different than it was before. And I like seeing those variations and seeing those differences.
Yeah. I really liked the sense, too, that they were giving you a little history lesson with the characters without overdoing it. I didn't want this to be a rehash of history because that would have made it feel a little more awkward. Stephanie talking about her history with Tim in a way that brings us up to speed on where she's at right now felt more natural, if that makes sense. There wasn't this awkward... This is one where I didn't want a one-page recap. You know what I'm talking about? This was done organically in the story, and I thought it was cool. I'm glad this didn't have the same pace as Convergence Superman, because this should have a different pace, and the story should be told in a different way. They really gave, and I don't know how editorially they handled this or how they, the pitches were handled with the writers who did these. I really loved that each issue had its own unique feel that matched the characters that were in the book, but yet they all felt like they were a part of Convergence. It's an interesting balance that came here, but the pacing in these work really, really well. And I do feel it's because I felt like I was in the bottle. In this issue in particular, I really felt like I was in the bottle, and I wanted to be in this bottle. I love these characters. I wanted to hang with them again, and that was really the cool part, to feel like I was in the bottle again with these characters. You and I are both huge fans of Tim Drake. Stephanie Brown, there's a reason why there's a legion of fans who really love this character. This is a girl who went from spoiler to being Robin, to dying, to coming back, to eventually being Batgirl. And that Batgirl book where she was the lead was outstanding. It was a really great book. So to see an opportunity for her to be in that role again, but not pulling her from the middle of her run, pulling her afterwards, the stuff we didn't get to see. That was a smart move. I'm really enjoying that far more than if you plucked her from a different era. Like putting Stephanie Brown Robin in here and having this be a side story that occurred in between panels or something like that, that wouldn't work for me. I really needed this to be after, and I wanted this sense of, wow, now you're getting the rest of the story. You're getting a little bit of a continuation here of what's going on. We're hanging out with friends again after some time away.
Yeah.
That stuff is neat. That's the part that I think I'm really finding engaging, is making me smile. These tie-ins I enjoyed just as much, if not more, than the main series. And please don't take that as a knock on the main mini. It's more of sometimes when you get tie-ins, they feel like extra material, instead of being something expansive or valid or just as important as the main event. Every one of these, I have trouble saying that I don't feel these are just as valid, and some of them surpass the main series because of the fact that they handle characters that I know and love and I haven't been visiting with in such a long time, that I love that. The creativity in this event, this is where it's really hitting a home run for me. It's just a different sort of event. And I can't wait. Each issue that comes out, I want to read right away, of every part of this, because of the fact that it is the revisiting aspect of it. Anything else you want to say about the Batgirl?
Batgirl is one of the ones that I'm really looking forward to. I want to see how this plays out. Again, it's funny because as you're talking, again, a lot of head nodding on my part. And it is weird where, there's a couple of the titles that I was like, I really was excited to see and really happy because these were some of the characters that I really dig. It was Red Robin Tim, Stephanie as as Batgirl. There's a couple other characters that I'm like, man, I wish somehow they could survive, and I want to see them survive. And it makes me wonder, is this the same city that, say, like Nightwing and Oracle are in, and that the other Batman is in, and the Flash and Adam? Are these all the same city, different people at different times, or are they separate cities? Are we going to end up having to have a Nightwing and Oracle versus Batgirl and Red Robin fight? Are we going to?
No, no. I'll tell you why. Because there's already references when you look at the Flash one. There were references to the fact that he was a part of the same world as them.
Oh, okay.
So these are all happening in the same city.
Oh, okay, cool. That was something I was worried about because, because I knew Flash and Adam were the same city because they in each of the books they made reference to the other character, and whatnot. But like with Nightwing and Oracle, they talk about Batman, they talk about Ivy, and in Batgirl they talk about Batman and they talk about Ivy. But I was always wondering, these are the same universes, so they got to be the same city, right?
Right.
And there was still that kind of like I wasn't 100% certain on it. And that's something I want to see because that's right there. That's a city I want to see survive because it's got a bunch of really cool characters in it.
Yes. So, and there was an explanation as to why they happen to be in Gotham because they're all in Gotham. They're all in that particular version's Gotham. Does that bother you that all of a sudden they kind of shoved a lot of these characters into that city? I think storyline-wise they explained it well enough for me.
Yeah, like with Flash was there because they showed that temporal anomaly. He ran there, and his kids came with him. Superman was there for, because he's Superman, and the temporal of the Justice. They said the Justice League was arriving to look into that situation. So, and that temporal anomaly ended up being Convergence. So it kind of explains, and all the regular Gotham heroes should be there. So it doesn't completely not make sense, so they give you an explanation. And it was weird because when I first started reading this and I was first kind of confused on this stuff, I kind of was like, man, why can't they have Flash in his city and this? And then that's when it really sort of dawned on me, okay, they wanted to keep them all in one Gotham. And it's still kind of like the figuring out the whole I need a map, I need a map. Give me a map of Telos. It shows where all the cities are. I think that'd be kind of a neat thing for me. That'd help me out. I'm a visual kind of guy. I like having these things.
Holy caffeine!
I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you a part of the show, so please feel free to call into the podcast. Ryan wrote about RagingBullets.com. It's our show website, and that's always where we post news on what's coming up with the podcast, especially when releases come out of the show. It immediately feeds into our Twitter account, so if you are a Twitter fan, it's a great way to get that information as well. It feeds from our website. We have an amazing Facebook group. It's a wonderful community of people. There are people who are casual fans of the show. There are people who are diehard fans of the show. There are people who don't listen to the podcast that go there that just love talking comics and pop culture. It's a real safe community because of the quality of the people there. And I shout it out many times. If you're a fan of the current DC and not just DC, the current crop of amazing superhero programming and films that are coming out, they do regular online chats about them and video chats and Google chats about, and Hangouts, I should say, about the events that are going on in these stories. They talk about the new releases of books as they're coming up, the solicitations, blogs are posted there, links to great blogs that are out there. Our fellow podcasters do links to their podcasts. It's a great way to discover new content. I just love that it is a geek culture, fun, safe, friendly community. Everyone's very respectful to everybody. And that really is a testament to the quality of the people that are there. That's them. And I shout out that group many times because I'm in awe of it. I'm in awe of the people there. And that has to do with them. And just want to shout them out again and encourage you, if you've never been a part of a Facebook group, consider joining that group. I do know a lot of times I've heard a lot of criticism from people about Facebook groups with the fact that you keep getting these email messages in your email account. You can shut those off in your settings too. So there is, in each group, there's a setting for you to control what email that you get from those. So if that's your annoyance from it, you're like, I keep getting too many posts from these, you can easily stay a part of any group, pop in and out as you please, enjoy the conversation, and not have to worry about it, encroaching on your life, but just by the fact that you turn off some of those privacy settings. So don't shy away from the group because of those kind of things. That's something you have full control over, so remember that. We have Facebook pages that are personal. We have Google Plus pages for the show and personal. There's all kinds of easy ways to find us on whatever social media that you like, but I just want to shout those things out because they're rather important to me. We are sponsored by dcbservice.com and instocktrades.com. Jim, you mentioned the very cool from dcbservice.com.
Absolute Batman Court of Owls. 50% off. Regular $99.99. Yours for just $49.99.
Over at instocktrades.com, be sure to check out the Fables trade paperback sale they're running right now. It's a huge 45% off sale of volumes 1 through 20. All of them are 45% off each. It's a great way to get them on an amazing deal. Also, remember to check out their deals of the week. They've always got amazing deals of the week that are 50% off. That's instocktrades.com, your collected edition source. Jim, our next episode, you're going to be on vacation, but we are pre-recording it. It's going to be a continued look at the first week of Convergence tie-ins, and we're going to try to cover almost all of them, if not all of them, in a casual discussion as far as what are our thoughts on them, what characters we liked, what beats did we like on them. So we will see you next week.
Bye!
On November 13th, Sean Whalen was asked to stop constantly talking about comic books. That request came from his wife. Deep down, he knew she was right, but he also knew that someday he would find someone that would talk to him. With nowhere else to go, he appeared at the home of his childhood friend Jim Segulin. Sometime earlier, Segulin's boss had requested that he shut up about his comic books and never speak of them again. Can two grown men put out a DC Comics podcast without driving each other crazy? It's Raging Bullets, the DC Comics fan podcast. With Sean Whalen as Dr. Norge, and Jim Segulin as the Sensei of the Whatnot and the Duke of You-Know. It's a spoiler podcast, so they will go in depth into the plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics they are reviewing. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you may better enjoy the show.